what we're going to do is show you how to make a period grandfather clock from start to finish.
John Sullivan of Braintree, Massachusetts is a master furniture maker. His furniture is high quality and built to last. Sullivan's talent is evident in the details.
This clock was originally done with the finest of mahogany. Today we've chosen a piece of mahogany that is just as good as it might have been 200 years ago. This piece will be cut up into its major elements: the base, the waist section, and the bonnet or hood. First we'll rough cut these pieces, then we'll mill them out to the correct thickness, and then we'll use these individual pieces for all of the big and large pieces on the entire clock. Now John Mitchell is going to cut the clock parts into its major and minor elements by cutting a rough board right in two.
The tools of Sullivan's trade date back hundreds of years. The techniques he uses to create his artwork have been passed down from artist to artist.
Now we're going to start the next part of the process in the milling, and that'll be fitted through the thickness planer. At that point we're going to see what the grain really looks like when it comes out the other side. Okay, John. This is what we really wanted to see. Now we've got a beautiful flat board that shows the real color and figure and grain of the wood. It's going to make a great grandfather clock. Here we are with the part of the base that we want. We're going to start to put it together. We'll show you how to make the very best base we possibly can. This is our crotch mahogany veneer. It's very highly figured and chosen for that reason. It's going to be used on the front of the base. What we're going to do is we're going to glue it to a sub base and put it in our press. I'll show you how. We've already put the glue on it. Now we nice and neatly put it right on top. Put it into our press. Turn it down and leave it overnight to dry. Now you can see our beautiful veneer. You can see this perfectly flat. We've shaped it correctly. What we've done was we've taken some beautiful holly for contrast. And with a razor blade and router, we cut in this design. You'll see how it comes out later on when the clock is finished. Now what we're going to do is put the base together. Okay, let's see if we can get it to fit in there. Oh, that's perfect. Now that we have our molding made and cut at an angle, miter that is, we put on a very small brad or nail, which in the end will never show. That part's done now. The last part of the base is the making of the OG bracket feet. It's done with a pattern first, which you draw full size. Here's the block of wood everything's going to be made out of. And what we do is trace the profile of the front of the foot right on the block. Our job is now simply to remove the waist and leave the profile itself. Eventually, what we have is a long block of wood with the profile at the end, which is still the full length. The back profile is cut on a jigsaw and then cut into the appropriate segments, and we have half a bracket foot. Mated with another piece of the opposing direction, we glue them together, and there's our foot ready to be put on the base. What I'm doing now is simply gluing and screwing the feet to the very bottom of the base. The base is now done. Now that it's completed, we've got our feet all attached. We attach it to its back, which is made of pine. We're ready to get going on the waist section. Here's our waist section, all glued up, the sides neatly fitted to the front, which is the frame, of course. Now I'm going to show you how to make these beautiful fluted quarter columns. going to show you how these are done. It's the same way that's been done for the last 200 or 300 years at least. We start off with 4 blocks of wood, which are going to be glued up together into one column with newspaper in between. I'll show you why we do it that way in just a few minutes. After it's all glued up, we have a piece like this. It's fairly solid, but it can later on be split, as you'll see. We then bring it over to our handy-dandy 110-year-old belt-driven lathe and turn it into a round cylinder. This old lathe, which is over 100 years old, is really just the same as the lathes they've been using for a couple of thousands of years. The reason it's so good is it's stable, and its purpose is to turn square objects into round objects. In this case, we're going to turn this square object into the cylinder that we use for making our extruded quarter columns.
Stay with us on Dream House as John Sullivan puts the finishing touches on a grandfather clock built for the ages. John Sullivan constructs museum-quality furniture through carefully prepared sketches, using his talent, which has been refined by almost 25 years of experience. Here, John works on the quartered columns of a traditional grandfather clock.
These grooves are made with a combination of a shaper for making grooves and a hand carving chisel. We then, inside of each piece at the bottom, take a decorative piece of wood. In this case here, we're using a tiger maple. We shape these by hand so they'll fit right in nice and tight into the groove. We glue them all in place and hold them together with tape or twine. After the glue is good and dry, we then take draw knives or heavy sandpaper and make it nice and smooth and neat all the way around the edge.
With a gentle tap, the quartered columns easily come apart and are then placed on the clock.
Just as we did for our base, we've got our door all made with beautiful veneer and holly inlay. And we put it in, we have another beautiful decorative element all done. Here we are with our base, our waist, and we only have one more section to go. That's the bonnet. With that, we just put in our dial, which will be hand-painted and beautiful. We're going to put in our mechanism after that, and we get to actually hear how it sounds when it's working.
Well, once I have the raw piece of sheet metal and the appropriate center post hole and wind holes drilled in it, then I can proceed to do my prime coats and my finish coats of white. I try not to do a real white color because most people say that it makes a clock dial look too new. So I hand mix my paint and toning it with appropriate umbers to tone down the white. And from then I proceed to map out a tracing which would help map the placement for the Roman numerals and the raised gesso and the gold leaf work and the floral painting. And most times, people that are building their own clock will also have me put their signature and their town on it. So from beginning to end, allowing for drying probably 2 weeks to reproduce a clock dial from beginning to end.
What I'm doing now is fitting in the mat, which is going to frame in, when it's done, our hand-painted dial. It'll set it off the same way a nice picture frame sets off a very beautiful picture. What we're doing here is cutting the fret, that lacy decorative element that goes on the top of the hood. The reason we cut it by hand on this very reliable old jigsaw, as opposed to having it done with a modern punch machine at a factory, is that with handwork you can get very delicate, precise, beautiful detail that people really enjoy seeing. It's the same as it's always been done. As you can see, we're almost done with our clock. We've got our base, we've got our midsection completed. Now we put our hood, or the third part, all together. We get it fitted into place like this. We can start putting on our final decorative elements. Our fretwork and our column that matches the inlaid quarter column down on the bottom. After that, we can start doing our staining, putting on our brass, adding our mechanism with the hand-painted dial, and then we're all done. Oh, hi, Astrid.
Good morning, John.
Wow.
I finished your dial for you, and hope it's the right shade of white and that it's going to look good.
Just as beautiful as always.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
I'm going to set it right in here. We'll have a look and see.
Terrific.
So it goes.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
That'll look great. Thanks again, John.
No, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Astrid. Bye-bye. Here we are with the last of the three parts, this being the hood. We've got all of the elements of design completed and in place. So all we have to do is sand this up, put on our finish, add our brass, mechanism, and hand-painted dial, and we're done.
In just a few weeks, John Sullivan has transformed many detailed elements of a grandfather clock into a strikingly beautiful example of period furniture making.
I love to hear it when we finally get the clock all ready and we get to hear the mechanism and the beautiful sound the first time. There's nothing like it. Isn't that beautiful?